Welcome to another exciting episode of the Fintech Show. In today's episode, we delve into the world of core banking providers and explore the concept of banking as a service. Join us as we uncover how these core banking providers are differentiating themselves amidst an ever-evolving ecosystem and a huge fintech industry re-evaluation. We've had the privilege of hosting our speakers at FF's own studio within the prestigious industry event Money 2020 Europe over in Amsterdam, the #1 event in the fintech calendar. To kick things off, we have the pleasure of speaking with Myles Bertrand, the CEO of Tuum, a leading core banking platform that has been revolutionizing the market. Discover firsthand how Tuum is setting themselves apart and working closely with the dynamic bank LHV. LHV is a finance group that is empowering people and enterprises to have the courage to think big and start things by setting ambitious goals and investing in the future. So I was really honoured to have Andres Kitter, the Deputy CEO of LHV, on the show too. Together, Tuum and LHV are forging new paths and reshaping the banking landscape. But that's not all. We also have the opportunity to sit down with Ben Robinson, the co-founder of Aperture, a marketing platform that truly understands the fintech industry and the needs of the organisations within it. Robinson, who has a wealth of industry experience, sheds light on where the fintech industry is heading and why BaaS is going to be a beating heart behind it. Join us as we capture exclusive insights from Myles Bertrand, CEO of Tuum, Andres Kitter, Deputy CEO of LHV, and Ben Robinson, the co-founder of Aperture. So, grab a seat and get ready to explore the fascinating world of core banking providers, the concept of banking as a service, and how these industry leaders are making their mark. Stay tuned for another enlightening episode of the Fintech Show. One thing about this industry is it's always changing. I want to know, what are the key differentiators from Tuum and other core banking platforms?
I think that's a really critical point. Because what's happening, particularly the challenge that the established banks have now, with their legacy technology, is by the time they innovate or do what they want to do, the market's moved on already, the expectation's happening. And I think if you go back sort of 5 to 10 years, the thought of outsourcing a mission critical system like your core to a vendor was just foreign, it just wasn't. But I think banks are now really shifting. They're seeing the value of the cloud, the flexibility it gives them, the security it gives them as well, and the ability to fast fail, create, do things and do it really quickly. So it's not just sort of those periphery systems that they're now outsourcing. They're actually prepared to sort of put cloud, maybe not everything, but they're starting to sort of innovate with new products, and they'll do that on next generation technology, and then they'll slowly transition and pivot over time.
It's absolutely brilliant because, when you think that you can actually now pivot within a couple of years, gone are the days where you'd have to update your systems every 10 years and it would change the whole organization. We can now actually have banks be like, okay, the customer demands are changing this quickly, and they can actually plug in and play. But you mentioned legacy systems being a challenge. I'm intrigued as to what are some of the other challenges that maybe Tuum can come in, maybe for some of the newer players that are looking to plug in and play with Tuum. And
so I think that's the thing. Banks have made a huge investment in their technology over the years, and they've sort of continued to build upon that. So they have a huge amount of tech debt, is the way to think about it. So typically we don't position ourselves as a solution to rip and replace basically heart, lung transplant surgery. Our idea is, how do we help them solve a problem? They might have an issue with a particular product, or they want to go into a new geography, or they want to go after a new demographic in the market. And that's where we sort of really help them. We enable them to do that quickly without sort of the typical cycle times that's associated. I think the challenges that you have, if you look at the rise of the digital players and the neobanks, some have failed, we all know that, and some are doing very, very well. And what's happening is, there was a survey done, I think a couple of years ago, where they interviewed the top 1,000 CEOs of banks in the world. And 57% of them said, if we don't evolve, we'll become extinct. So the drivers in the market now are sort of really driving the behavior. We're typically too big to fail. We can just keep doing what we're doing. You're now really seeing the market drive the behavior. So that's a challenge for the banks. So you see a lot of them are spinning off like digital brands, but even then now you're starting to see that they have to service their core base. And so they need next gen tech to do that. And you look around the show, there's some amazing solutions here. And they don't need to do it all at once. So the incremental bits of, great things with wallets, sort of payment capability, lending, and then sort of once you get to sort of the core, that's where we step in.
how do you choose a core banking platform in today's environment?
I think it's a very strategic decision whether you build everything in-house or actually go for vendor-based solutions. And our mission is to build a robust, scalable banking infrastructure. And it's quite evident that you don't necessarily need to build everything in-house. And our philosophy is that we only build those items in-house which actually make competition advantage to LHV. And the ones which are like a more or less commodity processing, commodity applications, we can actually partner up with somebody who's providing us the solutions. Like, let's say it's a core banking platform, it could be the lending module, it could be the AML monitoring screening tool. So those are like more like commodity things. So.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see that we've got to a point where you can pick and choose elements to create a bank from scratch, right?
You could, and you can pick up the best vendors and best applications which help you to succeed based on your customer focus, based on your mission. So I think the landscape has changed, and of course, well, moving to cloud, moving to more microservices, API-based infrastructure, you need to move as a bank. So it's fascinating how fast the legacy systems actually generated. So well, maybe 10 years old system is already legacy today. So.
I mean, the pace of change has just gotten almost frantic levels. So can I actually ask, this is the nitty gritty, but I'd love to get the perspective from someone in your role. What was it like going through that migration to a different core banking platform?
Well, it's a nightmare, honestly. But I think it's necessary nightmare because we definitely don't want to end up being a financial institution who's running a very old systems.
Yeah.
Up to the certain point where actually you can't anymore change because it's there for time beginning.
Yeah.
But migration is always a difficult part. But I think looking from different angle, if you know what to do and if you have a good technical team like we have, you can plan the migration in a way that it has a very small customer impact, actually.
I mean, so the other thing that we're seeing really exciting is some of the players, and they're coming in, they're really targeting the specific ways on their approach to the market. You hear BaaS thrown around, banking as a service is really common. But there's a couple of players, and LHV, who are a partner of ours. That's an amazing success story where they've been able to go in and provide a capability, allowing big organizations to sort of leverage their licensing and their capability, but giving them the platform to do that. So you've got a single sort of capability servicing over 200 corporates across the region, and it's really the innovation that it drives, the ability to help organizations which have well-established customer bases, and they want to do more than their traditional business. They want to do a little bit of financial services, how they become more sticky, how they help their customers. So you've seen lots of situations like that. I think you're seeing more specialized lending. So we have a couple of customers that are sort of really coming into that space where they're targeting not just your generic sort of personal loans or mortgages, looking at much more sophisticated lending about how they target certain verticals and certain industries as well. So you're really seeing organizations come into the market trying not to just be digital versions of the well-established sort of Main Street banks. They're really trying to sort of tackle certain segments of the market which they feel are underserviced, and how they help them be more successful.
Well, it goes back to our earlier point in the fact that everyone would just go with the same bank because they'd had generations going to the same bank. Now banks are saying, actually, we can be brands, and actually we're going to service a particular set of clientele and focus on it and become the best bank for that type of organization.
Great. But I think it's also, you've seen a lot of the big telcos around the world are now jumping into financial services because they've got millions of customers. They're saying, hey, how do I service them? How do I provide a better capability? How do I become more sticky? So you're seeing really a divergence of who is actually in that space. But again, I think now also with the way the consumer behaves is they might have a loan with one bank. They might have their savings account over here, but then they might have a wallet or a Revolut style thing over here. So they can potentially be using 3 different brands to meet their financial needs and their requirements.
So Tuum is a customer, has been a customer of ours for the last 2 months. And so I mentioned earlier on that I worked at Temenos, so the core banking space is one that we know very well. So And many of the people that work at Aperture are ex-Temenos people too. So it feels a bit like coming home, doing core banking again. But we're really excited about Tuum because I think there's three things about Tuum that are really differentiated. The first is that they're cloud native, and you'll hear that a lot. What does that actually mean? Well, that means that they're able to deploy the software with the lowest cost per transaction. But in addition, they have really quite broad functionality compared to most cloud native providers. So they can cover payments and cards and credit and corporate and retail banking and accounts. And so it's a pretty broad offering. They have a very configurable, fine-grained architecture, which allows people to, for the many tenants of the software to be able to build quite distinct and differentiated businesses themselves. And then the last thing, which I think is the most significant, is that they're able to actually do migrations. Because the thing with core banking is nobody wants to touch their core banking system. It doesn't matter that it's old and expensive to maintain, so because they perceive so much risk around that migration.
Some institutions will actually just create a whole new bank instead.
Yes, but it's interesting you say that, right? Because the sort of industry is telling you, you need to sort of throw away everything that you built, all the customers and the balance sheet you have, and start again, start a challenger bank. But that shouldn't be the only option. You should have the possibility to replace in situ, to replace your existing core banking system with another core banking system. And I think Tuum has really cracked that code. And so I think that's really exciting. And and the best thing about Tuum, other than those differentiators, is we think it's a wonderful platform, but nobody's heard of it. So that's, if you like, the perfect marketing challenge, because we just have to, tell the world and have the world become aware of what Tuum does. So I think it's a really exciting platform and a great marketing challenge for us.
Can you tell us a bit more about the partnership with Tuum and what that meant for you?
So Tuum has been now selected vendor for our core banking platform for the UK bank, and so we did RFI with 5 different service providers, and I have to say that they're all very good. I think the proposition what we have at the moment available in the market for core banking platform is really, really good. So for different banks, for different services, you could pick any of the service providers. So, I'm talking about 5 we looked, so they're all very exciting and excellent partners. But yeah, we decided to go with Tuum. We have a previous experience with the Tuum core team as well, so we knew them quite well. But when we went through the RFI, we actually looked, we turned around every stone, to be honest. So, but with our focus, with our approach, they ended up being the most suitable. And yeah, so we're at the moment implementing it, and then the end of this summer we have the migration.
Oh, wow.
So.
It's honestly, having been in the industry now for a decade, seeing the pace of change going from, we'll be able to roll out a product in 5 years to we'll be able to just do a core banking platform migration by May is incredible. So, with that in mind then, how does that change your strategic goals in the future? You've talked about the customizable aspect of it. Mm. How does that align with where LHV is going? Can I explore your future and how Tuum is going to enable that?
Yeah, so LHV Bank in UK, we have 2 core business pillars at the moment. One is SME lending in UK market. We have great SME lending team in Manchester, and they're doing a really good job. And then we have the banking services focused with fintechs and also marketplaces and other e-commerce platforms. So those are the core areas which we will be developing. And of course, good, robust core banking platform is enabling that growth. It's quite evident that in a lending space you need to have a scalable, good lending platform, and in banking services you just need to have a really robust core banking platform, accounts platform, plus also the payments platform. Payments platform we do indeed build by ourselves, because we think that this is the competition advantage what we have, and we are not giving it away, and we're not out
the secret sauce.
Yeah, it's a secret sauce, exactly.
You mentioned it, right? We've been through this horrific bubble in fintech, and I think the industry is starting to realize that the issue, it's not that banks are inherently bad businesses. It's just that they need to digitize, and I think the market's waking up to the fact that the biggest opportunity is to help not to kind of displace incumbents, but to help the incumbents to digitize. And so banks will be much more ecosystem based. They will distribute through multiple distribution channels. They will work with multiple parties who help them to upgrade their infrastructure, and they'll work with all sorts of third parties that help them to do fraud and identity and all these things more efficiently than they do today.
Amazing. Now, you're so well placed to give insights here. What is your advice to institutions, in this time period? What should they look to do? How can they utilize your services to really go and become the next big thing?
It won't surprise you that I say this, right? Given our expertise and our belief in embedded finance. But I think what everybody needs to do that wants to be in the financial ecosystem is they have to decide what their strength is and align their strategy accordingly. So I think for many banks, it's production, and therefore they should be looking to scale production and lower their transaction costs as much as possible, and then find the best distribution partners and to find the software, the embedded finance orchestration platforms that will connect them to multiple distributors. But there are many banks, Revolut and others, that have very large customer bases, and for some banks it does make sense to be an aggregator themselves.
Yeah.
And in which case, they need to be very open to offering third-party services, and they need to decide what's core and what's not core in terms of their offering, and work with third parties to widen their offering. So, yeah, I think it's about, strategy is about choosing what to do and what not to do, and I think that's what people should be thinking about, very much from a sort of business model prism, right? So, are you focused on distribution? Are you focused on orchestration? Or are you focused on manufacturing?
That's all we've got time for. I just want to say a massive thank you to our guests for catching us at the Whistle Stop Tour of Money 2020. It was absolutely fascinating getting their perspective. And also a massive thank you to you, our viewers. You can catch the rest of the series and so much more over at ffnews.com, of course YouTube, but especially LinkedIn, where you'll see me and my guests in the comments. Thank you very much, and goodbye.